Hi, I'm Garrett Martin with Paste Magazine. We're here at the Sennheiser Paste Interactive Studio Lounge at South by Southwest Interactive. My guest today is Axel Alonso, the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics. How you doing, Axel?
I'm doing great.
So what brings a comic book company to a tech conference like this?
Well, this is our second year at South by Southwest, and at Marvel, we pride ourselves on being innovative. We are the guys who come up and pioneer all the new developments with publishing. And last year we came and we spoke about digital comics and the creation of what we call infinite comics, which are comic books that are created for the handheld device, for digital. We made major announcements then, and this year we're here to talk about future sort of evolvements in the media and some other exciting stuff.
Okay, so I think first off was the number one project that you're having with the weekly comic issues?
Yes, the Marvel number one initiative is one where we're offering 700 issues, 700 number one issues of comics, from the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby number one to the Matt Fraction and Mark Bagley number one. You know, accessible entry points into the Marvel universe for free on the Marvel app and through Comixology. And judging from the early response, we may end up having to extend that deadline because it's been so popular.
So you said it was a year ago you were here where you were talking about the Marvel app and digital comics. How is that side of the industry looking like in terms of growth? How is it looking for Marvel, the digital side?
You know, again, we wouldn't be continuing to do it if we weren't getting an overwhelmingly positive response. You know, at Marvel, we view publishing and digital, print publishing and digital, as complements. Print publishing is, of course, the bedrock upon which we're built, and digital is the new space. It's a new newsstand. And digital is a way of getting more and more readers to the table, more and more people to read the comics we grew up reading and loving. So, you know, it's very important to us that we're at the forefront of innovating these things, and also that we understand that, you know, in the past, digital comics were all about taking a printed comic book page and just reformatting it for the screen. We're now using that media as a canvas and the tools to tell. We're changing the language of comic book storytelling. It used to be that comic books were told in a strip. It moved horizontally, a series of images. Then it evolved to the point you were telling comics as a page, where you had horizontal and vertical motion. You designed a page. And now it's a whole new thing where we're looking at the template itself. There's a sense of motion. You can use special effects, but it's not animation because the reader controls the experience. They move at their own pace. And I'll be honest, you know, we're not afraid to fail. We'll go out there and try things. We'll listen to the readers. We're there to serve them. And you know, we're evolving. We're getting better at our game with every one we do.
Okay. Also coming up, you have a weekly Infinite Comics are starting up soon, correct?
Yes, we do. We are publishing our first weekly comic book for 52 weeks, which is one full year, one full calendar year. We're going to have a weekly comic offering. The first story is a 13-chapter Wolverine story called Japan's Most Wanted, featuring a little character named Wolverine. And it is the first of 4 Infinite comics that will be told that will feature flagship Marvel characters from major monthly titles written by the writers of those titles, and that will be relevant to the comic book fan who goes every Wednesday, you know, and to the new fan. You know, there's a reason it's set in Japan. There's a reason it's Wolverine. There's a little Wolverine movie coming out set in Japan. And, you know, what we're doing with these stories is trying to make sure that we're telling stories that are as relevant to the long-term comic fan as anything they'd find in the comic store that Wednesday, but also very accessible to the new fan, the person who's seen the Wolverine movie, who's seen the trailer, who's just curious about Marvel.
Are there any plans to re-release the Infinite Comics in a print format? Would they ever work that way, or?
Well, they could, but one thing I want to urge is that for our offering of Infinite Comics, starting with Wolverine, Japan's Most Wanted, July 9th, we are urging that the creators think about only the Infinite comic. It's very important that they don't work feeling inhibited or trying to think too far ahead about multi-purposing. The most important thing is that they take full advantage of all of the things that the Infinite comic format provides, the sense of motion and special effects and things that we're learning on a day-to-day basis. So again, at some point down the line, we might turn around and say, oh my God, we've got all this beautiful art. We should find a way to repurpose it. And we may, but the long and short of it is we're creating this as a digital offering, an exclusive digital offering for the fan. And we're encouraging the creators to think of it as purely, this is the medium you're working in, go for it.
What have the creators told you about working in the digital format? Have you heard any feedback from them?
Well, it's a challenge and they love it. I mean, everyone's clamoring to do it. We've had any number of people now work on it. As we've said, we have 4 new creative teams all coming in to write 13-episode stories featuring a key character. I think the best thing I could say is that every single time we do one of these, we take a look at that, and the next person in line says, all right, so-and-so did this. What can I do to up the game? What can I do to improve it? And they'll call into us, does the technology exist for me to do this? Can I do that? So it's always a series of like it's almost like the NBA slam dunk contest. You got to get better if you want to move on.
How long do you think digital and print can coexist like it currently does?
Oh, absolutely. Marvel, we don't think they're hostile. It's all about building the biggest audience we can for our fans and for the people that read this stuff and are into the mythology. You know, it's completely possible to be respectful of the old fans and bring in the new fans. And let's face it, for everybody who's intrigued by the digital, it can send them to the stores. For the periodicals, you know, the weekly comic book, for the graphic novels, this is very different. Comic books are very different from music. In music, I don't know about you, but I download all my music. I don't feel a need to have an album on a shelf. I'm not a crusty hippie who reads liner notes.
Right.
You know, for me, it's all about just the sensation. But it's very different with comics. With comics, there's an experience. Certain comics, you may not need to have on your shelf. Other comics, you know damn well you need them on your shelf. So at the end of the day, these are two complementary aspects of our publishing plan.
Speaking of comics as an experience, one aspect that comics never really offered before was sound, which here at Paste and Sennheiser we're very interested in. So you also announced Project Gamma, which sounds really interesting. So that's infinite comics with sound, basically?
Exactly. Look, again, we like to be at the forefront in innovating, taking chances, and trying at Marvel Labs. The long and short of it is that, look, I think every comic book reader has had that moment where you're reading a comic book and you happen to have your iPod on or some music in the background. And there's that moment when the music and what you're reading converge. And it's complementary and it ends up being more than the sum of its parts. We've all had that moment. But the thing is, it's fleeting. It happened, you know, and it moves on. And you're not in control of that moment. The music may continue past the scene, ruin the next scene. But you know what I'm talking about. Right. It's that moment. Suddenly, you have a comic book with a score. So we thought, hey, maybe there's a way that we can innovate. Maybe there's a way that we can find a way to bring a score to bear on a comic book, to enhance that experience. Emphasis on enhance. The last thing you want to do is develop a technology or develop a score that rips you out of the narrative. So that's what we started to do. That was the task in front of us. I was as skeptical as the next guy about our ability to do this. But, you know, we have a demo that we've been showing around, and the first time I saw the demo, all my cynicism was erased. Because what you have is an adaptive, non-lyrical score that moves along at the same pace as the reader. It doesn't loop, it doesn't skip, it doesn't zip back. If you try and fool it by going backwards, you know, as one journalist did in a demo, you'll see that it moves with you. It always keeps you in the mood of the scene. It's always key to specific moments in the narrative. And in that sense, it's fair to say no two readers will have exactly the same reading experience because they'll all move at their own pace. They'll sit on one scene, they'll speed to another. You get the gist.
Do the comic creators, are they involved in the scoring decisions with their Project Gamma version of their comics?
Well, at this stage, no, because all we have is a dry run. You know, we have our demo to show people. But at the last editorial summit, where some of our biggest writers, Brian Bendis, Jonathan Hickman, Rick Remender, Matt Fraction, we unveiled this to these guys. We showed them the demo, and their jaws dropped. Because let's face it, you know, most of these guys are music fans, and most of these guys have music sort of percolating in the back of their heads when they're writing things. You know, Kieran Gillen provided the soundtrack in the letters page to Young Avengers #1, saying, if you're going to read this comic book, here are the tracks you want to listen to. So for these guys seeing that, it opened up, you know, a Pandora's box of possibilities. What could I do? You know, if you're reading, you know, Thor: God of Thunder by Jason Aaron and Esad Ribic, what's the music that's drifting through your head? Is the score classical music, or is it heavy metal? Or is it kind of somewhere in between, or is it both? You know, these are the types of things and the challenges we'll be facing down the road.
I know Matt Fraction, he used to also, in the back of Casanova, one of the books you guys put out, he would put down the list of the music he listened to while he was writing it. Have creators already started asking you if you could license existing music to work alongside their comics?
Exactly. I mean, right now what we're doing is we're taking it in stages and steps. And the most important thing is that we're working to make sure that the scores are not intrusive, that they enhance the comic book reading experience. And no doubt, you know, I have friends in the music industry who no doubt are going to be on their phone to me after they read the announcements because, you know, these guys, they're composers. They're big hardcore comic fans. So I think that the future's endless. The possibilities are endless.
We'd love to see the demo of Project Gamma. I think you have it right there.
I'd be happy to. All right, here we go. Here we have, you'll see as I scroll through that the score picks up slowly.
Yeah, it's slowly building.
Slowly building. And
oh, there's the dramatic reveal.
there you go. Key to certain moments. And you can hear the music building like it would in a film. There's a sense of urgency. At no point does it skip or loop. If I sit in the scene, you'll notice that it just continues, stays in the mood, but it's not in a loop.
Right.
You don't feel
And it's essentially panel by panel when it changes.
It drifts. It actually doesn't change panel by panel so much as it's keyed to moments in the narrative.
Right.
So it will move through moments. But if I were to go backwards, you'll notice there's no jarring effect. It stays in that moment. I'll move to something more dramatic now. I think we're building to the good stuff now.
Yeah.
And our
I think
battery
our power
died.
just died, right? No, but it seems like an exciting
my
new
marble.
twist on the comic format. So
Yeah.
And when do you expect that to be available for users?
We're earmarking 2013 as the launch date. Okay. I know in editorial, I've already started to talk with my editors and my creators about what projects we might want to, lead with. It's very important to us that we get as many eyes and ears as possible with the first thing we do and that we do it right. So I'd expect it will probably be a really big title featuring a key character or characters and that will have involvement from the creators at that stage.
Could you see going back to classic titles and giving it the Project Gamma treatment?
Again, absolutely. We never say never. For us, it's about always enhancing the comic book reading experience and making sure that people have options. I mean, if you don't like this, hit the mute button. That's the beauty of it all. It's there to enhance the experience. The key thing is we just don't ever want it to be something that works at cross purposes with what you're doing as a reader.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Axel Alonso, Editor-in-Chief of Marvel Comics, for coming by the Sennheiser Paced Interactive Studio Lounge and showing us Project Gamma and talking about all the Marvel Infinite stuff.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah.
How'd you like that?